Good morning, everybody. And today I'm going to continue the topic why science originated in the West. All right. Last time I talked about the religion, the part of the beliefs humans have, and how a person's religion, or a nation's religion rather, affects science from that part of thinking. Religion is something that will cover the whole concepts or whole array of thoughts, a group or a collective entity or the nation or whatever you call it, this group will have. Well, speaking of the influence or the model of thinking, a lot of people, at least I saw some people, use examples like we have some genius ideas from someone. If you say that is not very advanced or very brilliant, how can we have this or that? That sort of thinking. Well, let me say this. Why I'm thinking about this? Because in the ancient warring states and in China, there's like hundreds of thoughts going on at that time, and people call it hundreds of flowers flourishing time. Or the translation roughly is that 春秋战国百花齐放. Okay, but that part of thinking, that kind of ideas won't hold. You know why? Because it's not dominant thinking. It's not dominant thought. That's the problem. When you have a thought that is dominant, that has become a model, that has affected everybody, then everyone in the society will follow it. Let's say no matter you what field you study, like medicine, shipping, or business, or astronomy, anything, even building a bridge, your thinking of the engineers or the person conducting the business will be affected by the model of thinking. That is called controlling or influential concepts. So when I talk about the thinking, the recognition, or the knowledge, I'm talking about that aspect. In general, that kind of thing. So you cannot give me particular example saying this is our thoughts. That's a part of called abstraction. All right. If abstraction is strong enough, influential enough, it will be dominant force or dominant thinking over the whole group, the whole collective group of people. So that is the basic idea. All right. So today I'm going to talk about from the aspect of thoughts, how thoughts affect the discovery or continuation of science from this aspect, particularly from the point of, in philosopher's term, called epistemology. How you thoughts develop into this stage or into that stage? How do you mature in the world? In the growth. And that's the point. I believe Hegel once said, the growth or the recognition or the knowledge, the maturity for a baby, for an individual, for a group of people, let's say a nation, are all the same. You see the point here? The recognition, the knowledge growth is the same process, no matter what. So you have to think about this. All right. I'll further define this maturity or growth of knowledge into this part. I call it the process of abstraction. Everybody knows what abstractions are, right? You have a tree in front of you, like I have here, a tree here, right? This is a tree, right? And also you call it a reality. If you don't believe that's reality existing there, and bump your head against it, see what you had to feel. All right, that's a reality. And also, if you use the idea of abstraction, you have an idea of the tree. What is a tree like? Okay, here is the question. Which is real? Is the idea of the tree real? Or the tree itself is real? The tree itself, and people call it a reality. And the idea of tree, people call it a generalization or abstraction. Okay, let's talk about this. When you draw, you may say normally, the tree is real, of course. The idea of a tree, the generalization, is not as real as a tree. Okay. Most people will think this way. Let's say this. You draw a triangle on a piece of paper. And now I'm asking you, which triangle is accurate or more real in this sense? Is the triangle you draw on the piece of paper real, or the definition of a triangle is more real? What's the definition of triangle? 3 angles combined should equal 180 degrees. That's the idea, what we see a triangle. So, which one is real? It's the one you draw on the piece of paper or the definition. Well, you may hesitate to answer at this point. You may say, well, eventually, you have to admit, no matter what you draw, and no matter how accurate you do it, you always have inaccuracy here. You cannot draw a straight line no matter what. Right? So, whatever you draw on the piece of paper is not as real as the definition of a triangle. So, the definition is more real. In other words, the abstraction is more real. You believe it? No? Alright, let's go back to the reality, the tree example. If you say a tree is real, look at the tree. One more time. And closer and closer go into it. What the real tree is. You use microscope. You use you can see it from different angles, right? From the outline, the image, the whole part of the tree from a biological point of view. Then you can go back to the chemical view. You can see it from the molecular part, and it goes on to the atomic part, and even go further, the elements part. right? You have neutrons, you have other elements, basic elements. So, which is real? Eventually, you have to admit the definition of the concept, the ideas, like the triangle, is more real than the so-called reality, the tree there. Okay? So that is more real. All right, okay, so we come to this point. The abstraction, how good you are, or on what level you can, is the fundamental measurement of your knowledge, your maturity in knowing the world. I'll say this way, all right? Okay, let's say it from different angle now. Let's go back, go somewhere else maybe. Think about this. When humans, or they are humans, developed according to the Darwin's law, right? The evolution. Or you don't believe it, that's a different case. But anyway, humans, you think, they are at earlier times, they are not as smart as they are today. You probably believe in that. All right? And they abstract things from the reality. But it started from realizing the reality is different from their thoughts. Maybe they don't recognize the difference, but they started from knowing the world around them, right? You see an animal, you see a tree, you see weather, you fear about the thunderstorm. That's a part of the formation of the religion we mentioned the last time. All right? Okay. So the subject you are seeing, or rather the objects you are seeing, are the real thing, the world around you. Then you started somehow, one day suddenly realized you have thoughts, you have idea, which is not out there in the real world, right? And you started to wonder, what is that? What's the relationship of your thoughts against the reality there? Let's say you have a serious event, you figure out a way to do it better, which is certainly not right there for you to grab. Nobody tell you, and you have to think it has to come out of your mind. All right. And people will normally think they are sort of a thing. If it's true, it's reality. So in this sense, the Chinese emperor will think the heaven and earth, whatever I think, will become reality. That kind of recognition. So if I will, it will be true. In other words, they equalize what they are thinking, the thoughts, to the reality out there in nature. So that kind of thinking dominated the Chinese concept of culture or the world for thousands of years. They never separated the subject, the thinking, from the object, the world out there. They just don't have that separation. They call it a 天人合一. It's all combined. Or 指鹿为马. Why is it possible? Well, the bureaucrats, Zhao Gao, does not feel that's absurd. No. Whatever I think will be true. So when I say a deer's horse, then you call it a horse from now on. right? And other people don't feel absurd too. Why? Because of the culture. The dominant culture tells them you equal your thoughts with reality. That's what the Chinese do for over 1,000 years. They are the same thing, they think. One day you become emperor, you will do the same too. You can do whatever you want. You can make the world whatever you like. That's what they are thinking. All right? So there is no separation of the object from subjects. But far beyond, on the other end of the world, tens of thousands of miles away, there's a group of people in Europe. They call themselves white people. They are white. They think the Western people. They don't believe that. They think the object are totally independent from what you thought that they call it a subject. They started to have this separation in the process of obtaining knowledge. They realize, for example, the sun, the moon, out there are real objects. They are not affected by what you are thinking. You may have a far-fetched idea saying that one day when we have good technology, we'll build another sun like Chinese claiming that they are doing today. Well, maybe you will, but you have to realize there is something out there. They are not affected by what you do. That's called reality. Okay, so this separation of subject from object and also realize the relationship between the two is a pretty crucial step in the maturity of growing for a group of people, a nation you may call it. Okay, so to conclude this part, the Chinese doesn't, but the British or Europeans or Germans or French people, they did it. All right? They had it. They separated this one. All right. So let me continue from this trend of thoughts. The next point is when you separate the reality from thinking, you have to represent the reality in a way as a symbol in your head. To manipulate, to have ideas, to have the relationship between objects and the subjects. The most commonly used tools for that abstraction is called language. Okay, everybody knows what language is, right? You speak, I'm speaking right now, and you speak language. You use it every day. What's a language for? The function of abstraction, right? Let me stop here for now.